Welcome to episode 2, season 2 of the Bulls Recap podcast. I'm Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times. You can obviously follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, or you could read me in the Chicago Sun-Times sports section. That's where you'll find me daily now because Bulls training camp has started. We had the media day on Monday. Camp started on Tuesday. We're in week 1. And I'll tell you what, it's a good vibe. Last year at this time, it was kind of monotonous. It was kind of same old, same old. This year, I think there's a little different vibe, and I think a lot of it has to do with the addition of one guy so far, Isaac Okoro, the babyface assassin. If anybody gets a chance to see this guy not on TV and up close, yes, he has a baby face. And so, look, that's the talk of not only the practices and the scrimmages up to this point, but before camp started and the guys were all in town running together, whether it was out in LA or Miami, they did 2 stints together. Okoro's taking charges in pickup games, fighting through screens, playing with a physicality that a lot of these guys haven't seen since Miami kicked their ass in that play-in game. And it's much needed and it's contagious. So one of the things, obviously the main question that the media talked to both Billy Donovan about and Okoro about is, can one guy come in and kind of change the culture defensively? And both of them had really good answers on it.
To me, I think he can, because there's things that he's really good at that we need to get better at. And I think there's an example that those guys can look at. So I think he's able to help from that standpoint. But to put all the physicality just on him, I think there's no way he can do that. But I do think him knowing the league, him guarding some of the best players in the league, the other part of it too is I think the way he plays off ball screens, in pick and roll, him going to the offensive glass, those are things we need to get better at. He's good at those things. That can be, I think, a great tool, and it could be a great example for a lot of our younger guys.
Yeah, I take a lot of responsibility into bringing a lot of physicality to this team. My first 5 years in the league, that's typically what I did for Cleveland. Pride myself on the defensive side and being physical and just guarding the other team's best player and just try to cause havoc on that end.
So 2 things about what was said. The one is he takes pride in that, and guys have seen that. Guys like Matas Buchelis have talked about it. Coby talked about it. They all know that Miami game, they felt really good about themselves going into that play-in game. Let's kind of rewind back to last April. They finished the regular season 15-5. AK's beating his chest. I kept warning that March basketball is the worst time for an NBA team to evaluate its roster and feel good about things. I mean, it's a warning sign because in March, you have the teams that are locked in starting to rest guys if they already weren't. The teams that know that they're out of it because by March they know they're out of it. The deadline is coming past. You're starting to see by mid-March, we got to start getting in lottery position and start the tank. So you saw a lot of those teams. So to go 15-5, it's nice, but it's a fugazi, it's a mirage, and you can't fall in love with that. Unfortunately, Arturas Karnisovas committed the ultimate sin and has fallen in love with that. But I will give him credit. Lonzo Ball was a really good two-way player for what they were doing, but he, the one thing ability he didn't have is availability, and Okoro has availability. So that trade this summer, it didn't get a lot of headlines, but I thought it was kind of sneaky good. So the one thing that's the first point about Okoro is what he does can spread to other guys, and we're seeing that. Buchelis talked about it. Like I said, Coby talked about it. Vooch talked about it. The other part of this, does that make him a starter? And I asked Billy Donovan about that, the fact that he did fall in love with that lineup of Giddey, White, Vooch, Matas, and Kevin Huerter. And that lineup in that 15-5 run did go 7-1 when they played together. So there's something there. If you're a big plus-minus guy, you see that rotation, that unit was a plus. And Billy had some interesting answers about that. First and foremost, he doesn't know. And he wants to see how it looks and how it plays out. So I don't think we're going to get a lot of looks in the preseason games at that, but in the scrimmages, they're evaluating a lot of stuff. In the open runs, they're evaluating a lot of stuff. I'm sure there'll be some different groupings in the scrimmages. First one is Tuesday in Cleveland. Okoro gets to go home. The Bulls get to see Lonzo Ball, so that'd be good. But that's a good test because you're facing a Cleveland team, whoever they're playing, brings some defensive intensity, especially in the front court, and some physicality. That was a team that gave the Bulls problems last year in the physicality department. So we know what Okoro is spreading to the guys, the contagion that he is spreading, a good contagion. We just don't know what that translates into. Is he a rotation guy? Is he a matchup guy that, hey, tonight we're going to New Orleans, let's start him because of Zion. Tomorrow night we're going to be facing whoever it is that has a 3-guard attack. Let's go with Herder instead. I mean, Billy could play that game too. They're going to play 10 guys at least in the rotation, possibly 11 early on. So everybody's going to have to chip in. It's just going to be a matter of what they get from the babyface assassin. So that was the main storyline. I think this first week, the feeling I got was there's a renewed spirit in. They feel really good about the offense and where the offense is, but the defense slipped. And that was on full display with the lights on when Miami came into Chicago and instantly just overwhelmed them. Tyler Hero did a number on Giddey and White and exposed their defensive weaknesses. But overall, just the physicality of Miami that first quarter, it just overwhelmed and pulled the Bulls down into the abyss, and they couldn't get out of that hole. So to Arturas Karnisovas' credit, I don't give him a lot of credit all the time, but he might have an answer. And this guy has at least so far, it's training camp. You don't want to read too much into it, but he does seem to be well liked by his teammates, respected by his teammates, but more importantly, has his teammates playing a role that he likes to play. Guys are taking charges. Guys are diving in front of screens. Guys are blitzing screens, attacking screens with physicality. So we'll see. Everybody's got a plan until they get hit, as Mike Tyson used to say. So, but to me, that was the main thing these first couple days, talking to these guys after scrimmages. Even the rookie, Noah Essengay, he talked about, the physicality. He didn't see this kind of physicality, obviously, in Summer League. He was in the runs that they did out in Miami and LA and stuff. So it's not like he's being overwhelmed. So he's used to these scrimmages, but he even brought up Okoro's name as a guy that you want to watch and you want to imitate him and learn from him. So we'll see. I don't think he's an Alex Caruso type guy, because it wasn't just Alex's defense. It was just his IQ on that end. And he not only played with physicality, but just the anticipation of deflecting balls. And I mean, he can win games with just his IQ and his defense. There aren't many guys that can do that. Okoro is not that, but he's as good as anything the Bulls have. And then off the court, I have a mutual acquaintance with him, with his new, he's signed with the new shoe brand, Holo, I think it's called. And the people that are with him just rave about just what a fantastic human being he is. So not that the Bulls really need another choir boy, but, on the court, he's a little different. He's not a choir boy. So all good things for him. I was really impressed with him. The other things that came out of this first week, the Coby White calf strain is a little concerning. Here's why. Calf strains turn into nasty things. Ask Tyrese Halliburton. Ask KD a few years ago when they tried playing with calf strains, the Achilles went. Coby is betting on himself this year. He's going into he's an unrestricted free agent. So they're going to take this slow. They are not rushing it. They need him, but he needs to be healthy. The last thing he wants to do is bet on himself and blow out a tire for a year. So it's a little concerning because they didn't say, well, he'll be practicing next week. They said he's going to be limited throughout camp and the preseason, which means he probably will not play in a lot of these games. They're not sure if he'll be ready for the start of the regular season. Again, they want to be super cautious with this. The guard room is heavily loaded. The one thing the sense that I got, I think we talked in the last podcast about the idea Could they trade Coby White? Could he be the piece that Houston needs with Fred VanVleet going down? It doesn't feel like that's going to happen. It feels like they really covet him. I asked Arturas Karnisovas on media day about free agency, Coby. Where are they at with that? Obviously, I knew he wasn't going to show his hand, and that's fine. But he did answer the question, and what he said is there's been open dialogue. He's not going to go into details of the negotiations, but they love Coby. They want to keep Coby. So the way I see it playing out, Coby eases into the season. Coby is the perfect piece for what they do offensively, a fringe all-star. Who knows if he could jump up? But Halliburton out of the picture, that's another guard that was in front of you come all-star time. So maybe Coby takes that jump as an all-star. And then, the bet on himself, I think, pays off. I think ceiling is 30 to 32, or I'm sorry, floor is 30 to 32 million. If he's an all-star and really does something spectacular, could it be a 35 to $40 million guy? The Bulls have that kind of money. They want to invest in their own. And if you're not going to trade him to Houston, or you're not going to trade him, period, you're going to pay him. I mean, come February, they can pretend like they don't want to show their hand, but their hand will be shown by the February trade deadline. If they're in running for a playoff spot, especially a non-play-in game spot, why trade Coby White? Then you're almost saying we're keeping Coby White, we're paying Coby White. It's just going to be what's the price. So it was no big surprise. And again, I've reported this in the newspaper, talked about in the podcast. Why didn't Coby take the extension that they were offering last year that they're offering now? Why would he? Because he was on such a franchise-friendly contract. I think it was 3 years, $36 million. You can only go up the first year of your extension if you sign it before you become a free agent, 140%. So that means he's making, $12 million right now. The first year of his contract extension can only max at $18 million. So next year he'd be playing at $18 million. That's a disservice to him. It's a disservice basically to free agent guards around the league. So it would make no sense for him to take the extension now. There's favors, there's hometown discounts, and then there's just stupid. That would be stupid, especially when you're leaving at least $12 million to $15 million on the table for next year alone. So everyone knew he wasn't going to take that extension. He told the team that. He's betting on himself. And the one thing about Coby, he goes into every offseason looking to work on his deficiencies instead of just add to his strengths. And so that's why the calf strain's a little concerning. It happened a month ago. So what kind of shape's he going to be in? How is he kind of really just going to ease into the season? Will it take him a month to really get ramped up because of this high-octane offense that the Bulls run? And the other one, Patrick Williams is still on this team, surprisingly, and he tweaked his ankle. They didn't think it was that bad. He was on the bike after that practice, but they had to pull him out of a practice and check him out. It was a non-contact injury. The one thing I'll say about P. Will, we haven't heard anything about P. Will. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's good for the kid, because I think we're all tired of the same Patrick Williams interview and answers where all he says is, I know I have to get better. I think I can be great. I got game, whatever he says. He says a lot of stuff. Maybe with just being in the shadows and just being a rotation guy and coming off the bench and being that secondary lockdown guy to Okoro, maybe that benefits him. I don't know. I think they're at wit's end with trying to solve this kid. I reported at the end of last year that they basically told him, we brought you to the water. If you don't drink it, we don't know what else we could do with you at this point. So, and they still got to pay him. I think he's got 3 more years or 4 more years. It's not pretty. So he's got to figure out one way or the other. But I think they're kind of to the point where we know you're not going to live up to being the number 4 pick overall. You never will. Be something that's serviceable for us. And if you can't figure that out, we've given you different personal coaches to work with. We've bent over backwards, started you, pulled you out, put you back in. Obviously there's been some injuries that set him back, but everybody goes through that. I mean, he's no different. So at some point, Patrick Williams has to do it for Patrick Williams. So we'll see. Maybe this is the year. The other mystery, I asked Billy Donovan about a starting lineup, and I touched on this when I talked about Okoro. The Kevin Huerter thing is interesting because offensively, he just is such a threat in what they do when they go with that 3-guard attack. I just don't think that's sustainable. I think you can get to that quickly in the rotation because they do stagger Coby White. If you recall last season, Coby would probably play the first 4 and change. They would pull him out. This is when everyone was kind of healthy, minus Lonzo Ball. And Trey Jones was still there and stuff like that. So ideally, they would pull Coby out after about 4.5 and stagger him, maybe put Trey Jones in, and then Coby would be staggered with that second unit. So it could be a quick flip if they start Kevin Huerter, or they could pull Huerter out and stagger him with Coby in that second unit, however they want to do it. I just think the most sustainable starting group is if Huerter comes off the bench and Isaac Okoro's that stopper that Patrick Williams has been that square peg round hole force to try and be, and is just not because of the incomplete parts of the other parts of his game. And Isaac Okoro has a chip on his shoulder to showcase some of his offense. I think when Cleveland was putting him for corner threes and actually using him, I think he was effective. And then Cleveland just put him in a corner, and nobody puts the baby-faced assassin in the corner. He didn't love it there because they would just forget about him. And I think they forgot really what he can do offensively. I think he could hit a corner 3. I think he can be a 38 to 39% three-point shooter when given the right 3 and the right spacing. So, and he wants to showcase his offense. It's funny because we asked him about this defensive mentality he has, and he said, I had that going back when I was 6, 7 years old because that was the only way I was going to play at that age. You know, he was a young kid playing basketball because he said my offense was not what it was supposed to be, even at a young age. So he knew instantly defense is what was going to pay the bills for him. But he can be a good offensive weapon. I like his shot from outside. I don't think he's Patrick. Patrick Williams is a pretty good three-point shooter. He has turned himself into that, especially a wide-open 3. But I think Okoro could knock it down and be an offensive weapon. And I do think there's something to be said that the Bulls need. It's great to sit there and say team defense, team defense, team defense. At some point, you need a guy to say, here's the line in the sand. I'm taking your best guy, dare his ass to cross it, and I'm locking him down. You need that guy, especially if you want to be a top 4 team in the East and host a playoff round. You just need that guy. So, excuse me. So, I mean, you know, we'll see. Billy Donovan said it's a let it play out. He's taking notes in the scrimmages and watching the film and doing all that stuff. What won't happen, what was asked several times, which I don't know why I was asked, but Nikola Vucevic will not be pulled out of the starting lineup because of his age. He will not be limited in minutes because of his age. If anyone was paying attention to Euro basketball and the FIBA World Cup that went on, he led Montenegro in minutes played this summer and played very well. It was his going away retirement from international ball, you know, because obviously I don't think they play for another 2 years. And he just wanted to call it quits and move on. But the old man, as he was on that team, played. I think he led them in minutes played, and probably was near the top of minutes played throughout the whole cup. So, yeah, he is not going anywhere. He is not going to get his minutes cut. He is, you know, a starter that will remain a starter. So we can go ahead and squash that idea that somehow Nikola Vucevic is going to see greener pastures and start being put out in the pasture in the final year of his deal. So those are the main storylines this week. And like I said, it's all about Okoro, and we'll see exactly what the babyface assassin brings to the table when we go to Cleveland next week when preseason starts. So, all right, let's get to the island, the Rant, Cowley Island. AK's press conference. I 8-miled him kind of by saying I knew what he was going to say before he said it, and he didn't disappoint. The one word he keeps using that is bothersome is patience. We don't want to hear patience anymore. This is going to be year 7. He has had 2 contracts. He's been extended twice. Both times very secretly because the Bulls do not announce their roster moves and what they do. But he's been extended twice, and he's had one major rebuild, obviously, when he flipped the roster and brought in Zach was already here, but when he traded for Vooch, brought in DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball. I mean, it was a good attempt. He just didn't get off it quick enough when he saw it wasn't going to work and the injuries were a problem. We're out of patience. I would rather he would just say, hey, I want to apologize for my first 6 seasons of doing this, because when I came here, I promised one of the things I wanted to do is return the Bulls to not only a global brand, but to a championship brand. And he has not done that. They've reached the playoff one time. They've won one playoff game and were quickly just deposited by Milwaukee in that playoff series. So the regime post Garpax has one playoff game win. Not a playoff series, one playoff game win. So we're kind of done with patience, okay? Just come out and apologize and say, I've messed up, I've made mistakes, and I'm trying to do better. That would be good. Let's get to the list. I'm going to be Mr. Positive here. I think the Bulls can finish better than the play-in game. I feel like the Bulls can possibly, if everything falls their way, be a 5th or 6th team, somewhere in there, and just get out of the minutia of that play-in. But here's the 5 teams that I think, injury-free, they would have a hard time jumping. So we'll start with Milwaukee. You know, people could say Milwaukee's going through this kind of change and stuff, but if Giannis is healthy, he's still one of the best players in the league. They added Kuzma. That could kind of be sneaky good. Their bench is pretty deep. I mean, let's not, you know, they're going to be interesting. They're going to be different, but they're going to be interesting. So I don't know if the Bulls are better than Milwaukee. Orlando, they're not better than Orlando. I think Orlando is going to take one of the bigger jumps. The Desmond Bane trade was genius. It was the perfect piece of what they need, as long as Orlando stays healthy. Physical, defense. You know, people are like, well, they can't score. They can lock you down. They're fine. Detroit, I think another team take a huge jump. New York, I think New York's going to fall because I don't think Mike Brown is nearly the coach that Tibbs is, but talent-wise, they're just still better than the Bulls. And then Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland 1 through 5, it's hard pressed to say where the Bulls would even be better than them. So I think Cleveland is still the cream of the crop of the East. Boston, I think, is going to take a huge fall. They'll be in that Bulls area as long as Brown is healthy. I mean, he's still, you know, an elite player, but they're totally a new look team. There could be some up and coming teams, Philadelphia and stuff like that. But these are, as of right now, these are the 5 teams that I don't think the Bulls can be better than. So, doesn't mean that they could not be hosting a playoff game, though. Let's just kind of get out of that play-in minutia. That's kind of gotten old, but we got to have patience. So, till next week, I got next.